Hello and welcome to another episode of Just Onside. It's got an international feel today. Mr. Owais Ahmed is in Germany, in the canteen. It sort of seems lots of people walking in the background. I'm in. It's hard to tell, but I'm actually in Dubai. Unfortunately, it's about 10 past 8, and sunset was about an hour ago, so it's dark. But if I open the curtains, obviously you're not going to see anything. But if I open the curtains and this was during the day, you'd see the Burj behind me. So that's that's where I am. This is in Germany. We're going to keep it brief. We're going to keep it short, and we're going to feature one topic, and it's a topic that I think we're ahead of the game. Fabrizio Romano is always renowned for breaking news, but I think we broke it before anybody, and it's Kylian Mbappe. We talked about a potential move to Saudi Arabia, and we mentioned it a few days, about a week ago, and I think the press started picking up on it about 3 or 4 days ago. It's sort of gone a little bit quiet now, Lewis. I'm not sure how much traction there is, but what's your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously it was something that we talked about, and then suddenly a world record offer, incredible, mind-boggling personal fees, but it seems to have just gone a little bit quiet. So, what's your thoughts on this Mbappe potential move to Al-Hilal?
Well, I think to be fair, you said we called it. I wouldn't say we called it. I think that's probably a little.
I was just being generous.
You're being generous, but
It's a team effort.
it's a team. Well, yeah, I was going to say. I mean, you mooted the idea, didn't you, regarding when we were discussing the Saudi Pro League, whether or not if they were able to somehow, uh, arguably the world's best player, what that would do in the kind of context of how we view the Saudi Pro League. Yeah, there's one thing landing Cristiano Ronaldo at the back end of his career, which many 100% for sure perceive that move to be okay. He's at the end of a career. I think you phrase it as kind of a pension, a payday, so to speak, one last payday. And there's another thing. 6, 7 months on landing the best player in the world. So that what it would do for the Saudi Pro League would be quite incredible. You're right. Al-Hilal supposedly having made a 259 million pound bid for Kylian Mbappe. You're right. The sums on offer in terms of his personal salary, we shouldn't even get into. They are numbers.
No, I think we should do. I think we should do. It's just ridiculous.
Some of the numbers I've seen, I mean, incredible. And the idea of the move would be uh, he would be free to leave next summer because many believe that his ultimate destination is to get to Real Madrid. Now, look, let's provide a little bit of background to this. He signed a 2+1 deal. He has the option to trigger that extension next summer if he wishes to stay on at PSG. He informed PSG at least 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, he would not be triggering that extension, but that he was happy to see this last year out. PSG, of course, don't want to see him leave on a free, and I've said that ultimately Mbappe would not. Mbappe gave his word that he wouldn't go on a free, and that he seems to have got a deal in place with Real Madrid to join them on a free next summer. So again, it's this unusual position where the player wants to, I say wants to, and I put those in inverted commas, stay on for this last year. The club ultimately wants to sell him. And you do get into this murky world of, well, the club were well aware when they gave him his contract that this was a contractual year for Kylian Mbappe to play for Paris Saint-Germain. It seems the player's happy to do that. Again, if you believe what's coming out of the players' camp, the bid is incredible from Al-Hilal. Does it move the needle? Well, the question I have to ask Ayub is, and we put this during the last episode, is Kylian Mbappe will play for the club next season that he wants to play for in the end. And if that is Al-Hilal for 1 year
Yeah.
or whatever it may be, he'll be on board and he'll get on board with that. The question I ask is, what happens if he doesn't want to move on? Now, it's all very well giving Al-Hilal the opportunity to speak to him, but what happens if ultimately he says, no, I don't want to move to that club? So we're in this kind of murky world. I'll give you a bit more of my thoughts. I just want to get your views. I mean, it's an incredible bid. You were the one who suggested that this could be something seismic for the Saudi Pro League. But it is staggering, and the sums of money involved. I mean, it leaves in some ways a slight, I want to say, a dirty taste in your mouth. But it's a case of some of the numbers. It tells you a little bit about where football is. There is this massive disconnect between where football is at the highest level in terms of the finances and perhaps what the average viewer views in terms of the lavish sums of money on offer for these professional footballers. But I think that's a conversation for another day. Where do you stand? Do you see this happening? That's the first question. Do you think in the end, do you see that Kylian Mbappe could be playing in the Saudi Pro League next season? That's the crux.
It's a strange one. Initially, do you know when I actually mentioned it? I was quite serious. I really did think it was going to happen. And obviously the news broke that there was a bid which has been accepted by PSG. Now, I never read. I have not much faith and trust in that paper, but it sort of indicates that it's not something that Mbappe wants. Now, that ultimately we talked on our last show as well that really it's Mbappe who decides where he goes. It seems like a no-brainer because I mean I think it's almost a done deal to Real Madrid in 2024. It seems to be it's the worst kept secret. This year it looks like he's not really engaged with PSG. There's some sort of I wouldn't even sort of say it's an impasse. There's some sort of disagreement, fundamental disagreement between the club and Mbappe. So it looks as if he's not really engaged or invested in playing for PSG. So you might as well. I mean, it seems the logical thing to do. I talked about Mbappe being quite motivated by money. This is something I'm not even going to sort of say it's going to set him for life because he's already set for life. This sets him up for about 16 generations. So it's a ludicrous amount of money. You sort of alluded to the point about the ethics, the morality. I mean, I suppose it's always been for a large sort of number of years a certain degree of immorality in football, and certainly in terms of finances. I mean, this would just be it's beyond obscene. The amounts discussed. What is it? 600 million, 700 million. It just is. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
The logical part of my brain tells me that it seems almost insane for Mbappe to say no because everything sort of is. He holds all the cards. He doesn't really want to play for PSG. There's an offer, incredible offer. He's got a deal, I think, in principle, with Real Madrid for 2024. It just seems the most common sense thing to do for Kylian Mbappe to play for a year in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, that does wonders for Saudi Arabian football. So I'm sort of thinking it's gone a little bit quiet, maybe in the last 24 hours, 48 hours. But I keep on thinking that why would he not want to move down based on all the circumstances? Because as I said, he's in complete control of the situation. He's going to get his move to Real Madrid in 2024, irrespective of whether he goes to Real Madrid or not. So therefore, why not go? Why not just cash in? Because he will never ever be in a position where I suppose he might do in the future again if the Saudi Arabian Football League is still going. But at the moment, to me, it's a strange one. I think he should go. I believed he would go, but it just the fact that it's gone quiet over the last few days makes me think that maybe he's not sort of too keen on the idea of going to Saudi Arabia, which baffles me. Why?
Yeah, I think in the end, I am interested if this move materializes how the wider football world sees it. What it will do wonders for the Saudi Pro League, but I think there would be a huge turnoff to some extent, simply because the Saudi Pro League will have nabbed the world's premier player, even if it's for 1 year. So there's going to be some divisive feeling, in some way, shape, or form. It'll either attracted a huge amount of eyeballs, which it will anyway when you have the world's best player. Or alternatively, many European viewers will see it as a big threat. Say, well, if they can get Mbappe, they can pretty much get anyone. And I think the average footballer, the average football fan, I should say, who's accepting of the money and the sums of money that professional footballers receive on the whole, I think there is some line that ultimately when it crosses, there's a certain feeling that's evoked to think, well, this is now just getting ridiculous. And I think this move, if it does happen at you, and I'm sure you agree, will have wider ramifications for UEFA and just the wider footballing world in terms of, in the same way the Super League caused a huge uproar, a lot of debate, a lot of talking points. I think this would be another huge domino in the sense of, hey, how did this happen? Is this a threat? Is this something we need to look after? Because ultimately, UEFA are interested in the European leagues and the Champions League and preserving that at all costs. And if you have one of the premier footballers not in the Champions League for at least one season, that has an impact, right? That is something that you can't just take lightly. So I think that there is that. I think, look, do I think in the end it's going to happen? I really have no idea because power plays from Kylian Mbappe and then Paris Saint-Germain. Obviously, Nasser Al-Khelaifi is a complete disconnect with the player right now. They want him gone, it seems. He spoke about, if you remember, he had a speech at the training ground in front of all the players to say if anybody doesn't want to be here, they can go. So they've clearly changed tack in their approach of appeasing Mbappe in previous years, let's say, and giving him the, as we would say, the run of the place, so to speak. And now it's a case of trying to reel some of that back in. You're right, it's gone a little quiet. There's been no real official word from the Mbappe camp. There's no word from the Real Madrid camp. Maybe Mbappe is going to be like, you can't force me to take this move on. I'm contractually obligated, and that's where the unions might get involved, the lawyers might get involved. I mean, it's a crazy situation. So it might just be a case of who blinks first. And does Mbappe really want to go to the Saudi League for 1 year? Only he can answer that. So I think that's where you're at. I mean, in the end, Ayub, irrespective of our footballing passions, to see a Premier footballer go to a league for 1 year for £260 million, receive salaries of over £500 million for 1 year, and then for that club to be happy to let him go for free the year after. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture. Generally, I would say that needs to be looked at on a more macro level. Do I think it's going to happen in the end? For some reason, I don't. For some reason, I still can't believe it. But I mean, they've put a bid in for a reason. So let's see. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I agree. It seems strange that from thinking that it was something. I mean, I obviously preempted something, and then 2 days later it's public. But now I'm very much like you. I think it's I won't sort of say it's dead in the water, but certainly it just seems to have lost some of its fizz. It doesn't seem to be as prominent. But in terms of the league, I mean, you talk about will he go to the Saudi league? I mean, in terms of leagues, he's playing in the French league. I mean, let's not go there. I mean, I've criticised the French league enough as it is. But it's a bit of a circus. It really is a circus, and I think it doesn't look. It's not a great look for Mbappe because I
Agreed.
think he's a wonderful, wonderful player. But it's not something that you'd want the best player in the world to have this sort of circus around him.
Yeah, and just one point on that, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but there is something again about the average viewer and consumer of football. We're accepting it's a business. Let's not get it twisted. I think most people are, but there is something about you mentioned the word obscene. I think there's, like I said, when fans struggle to relate with footballers, I mean, they already can't. Footballers are professional, they're 1% of the 1%. But the sums of money here is just beyond crazy. This would be the most eye-watering move you would think that's ever been in football. And I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration in terms of the fee, in terms of the contract, in terms of the fact they're willing to let him go on a free transfer next summer. I mean, I think this would have major repercussions, not just in the UEFA corridors, but yeah, across the footballing fraternity. I still don't see it happening. The player would have to agree to it. But in the end, is there a way for him to play at PSG without signing a new contract? Well, according to Nasser Al-Khelaifi, there isn't. So someone's got to blink, Ayub, and I'm not sure who.
Well, it's certainly not going to be Mbappe. He knows his worth, and simple. It's as simple as that. He knows his worth. He knows he's an asset where he's in huge demand. He can call the shots, and this is player power. An absolute prime example of player power. But there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, this is the modern world of football, and I think those players who are at the very top of the game can dictate terms, and this is exactly what he's doing. Personally, from a personal point of view, I think it's not something that I gravitate towards. It's quite sick, but ultimately, this is the world of modern football. There is no morals in the modern game, and this epitomizes exactly the immorality of modern football. But that's our thoughts. Owen, I mean, it's a quick piece that we've done today.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, obviously, what our viewers think. Will he go? Will he not go? If he doesn't go, will he play for PSG, or is he just going to sit on the bench? Which is there's rumours that might happen. So it's going to be very, very interesting following the progress of this story. But ultimately, I think Mbappe is in complete control of this situation. I don't think he worries too much exactly what's going to happen, but it's an interesting one. And so that's our thoughts. So I'll ask for the usual. Please smash a like, share with your friends if you've got friends. Subscribe if you haven't, and it's obviously the support that you give us is absolutely fantastic. Let me apologize in advance because I'm in Dubai at the moment. OS is in Germany. I think there's been some issues with connection, so maybe this may not be the most smooth of videos, but that's why we've kept it short as well. And also, we wanted to talk about Mbappe because obviously it's a topic which is quite hot at the moment. Okay, so until the next show, don't stray offside. I've got it wrong again, haven't I? Would you believe it? It's the sun. The sun's got to me. What is it again, Owit?
Don't stray off of you, but you're progressing. So there's that.
All right then, Owis.
Brilliant.
Good to speak to you. Until the next time.
Brilliant.
Don't stay offside. Don't stay offside.